understand. And second, I want to make sure that you know that we're going to show you from the Bible how to be a warrior that doesn't just survive but thrives in the middle of all of this. I don't care about what they're saying they're going to do with money, weather, control this, do that, the other. But here are the keys. Number one is the threat is deeper than you know. Secondly, they're more sophisticated than we understood. And number three, it is a supernatural moment for the body of Christ. And many of you that are watching listen to a lot of podcasts. We don't have any vanity about thinking we're the only ones you listen to. But I want you to see where we separate ourselves from others. We're not going to teach anything that we don't believe will work in real life. We're not going to awaken you to some fantasy of feeling. We want you to have true warrior spirit and to understand it. So here's what I want to say, and we're going to go back and forth on this. Number one, I already gave you a number one. Let me give you A then. Let me go through the alphabet real fast. The important issue in this hour right now, the important issue in this hour is that Donald Trump has 4 years. That's what everybody needs to be thinking about. The church needs to think about it. Economists need to think about it. And we have just now uncovered what we are going to show you is the inversion matrix plot. It's a big deal. So you need to share with your friends right now. If you like this show, it'll help the algorithm to find people. If you press like, if you share it, it'll amplify our voice. I believe a lot of people need to hear this. I believe, Todd, that a great spirit of lawlessness has just been unleashed in America. And, you would think the left is saying, okay, we lost. Okay, we're not DEI anymore. We're not going to be woke. We're not going to do any protests, blah, blah, blah. We're going to just go away. It's just the opposite, isn't it, Todd?
Yeah, 100%. I think they've had a contingency plan all along, and now we're seeing a little bit of what that contingency plan is. But the one thing that you can say about the left, which I believe is demonically inspired, is that they're resilient and they don't give up and they don't give in. And so we have a tendency, and I don't know why this is, but when we win, everybody kind of goes to sleep. It's like, okay, now we won. We don't have to fight. Just the opposite. We have to go full steam ahead because we have midterms coming up. We have a bunch of plots and schemes and traps and things that the radical left has set up. They want to use people that they term, this is not our term, but they call them useful idiots, people that are deceived, that have bought into their lies and deception. And then they utilize these folks. And by the way, they've been doing this in communist revolutions forever. I mean, this isn't anything new. But what is new is they have technology now, and they have algorithms, and they have different types of data that they can look deeper in than any past regime in history. So they're going to utilize AI. They're going to utilize all these different, surveillance techniques. And we got to watch this, Mario, because even, we just saw the elections in Australia. We saw them in Canada. And while we had a great victory in the United States, these other nations are going the other direction. And we're already seeing the new prime minister in Canada come out with all these stringent, privacy, not privacy, but censorship type of laws and things that he'd like to enact. And this is what they wanted to do here. They wanted to take away more rights, freedoms, religious liberty. And so they're already doing this in our neighbor in the north. And I know that many of our listeners and viewers are from Canada. We just want you to know we're praying for you. And regardless, this applies to you. This applies to folks in Australia, all around the world, to understand how we're going to refute this, how we're going to combat this evil plot and scheme to what I think what they want to do. They want to usher in the tribulation before it's time. And the Lord has given us more time to be about soul winning, but we have to discern this. We have to understand what's going on. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Fear is a monster, Todd. Fear is a monster, and I want to quickly comment on what you just said. When Moses left Egypt with the Jewish slaves, the nation of Israel, when they left, it didn't take long before the reality of freedom set in. And this is a problem with people that tend to fall back into socialism after an election like Trump. So the tendency is we've left slavery, but now food is not convenient. There's conveniences in a prison cell. There's conveniences in a socialist system. And even though it's oppressive, even though we remember what's going on with our children, even though we know that it was horrible beyond words under Kamala Harris's vice presidency and Biden's presidency, people get lonesome for the convenient. They would rather be safe than free. And that's a real powerful thing. What a lot of people are getting, if there's buyer's remorse about the policies of Donald Trump with tariffs, it's this buyer's remorse. They want the convenience. They're kind of slipping back and they don't realize what the price is. I think what is your opinion of that, Todd?
Well, I'm so glad you brought this up because it's exactly what's playing out before our face right now. Is that, you look at your 401k and you might have lost a little bit, really not that much if you think about it, but some people more than others, obviously, and you start to panic. And this is what people do often. They panic sell. So
Right.
they see the stock market going down, then they hear some of these people like Kramer and different voices out there. It's going to crash. We're going to go into a recession. And then it gets worse and worse. I think the media has actually induced this because the way that they're reporting is so negative. And during the Biden era, they weren't reporting that way. So instantly, anybody that's still in that matrix, speaking of matrix, the matrix is that, if you believe what these talking heads are saying, that you might be one of these people that starts to panic sell or starts to not, live the way that you were living. All of a sudden, everything changes when really there hasn't been any change to our economy that's really notable in that aspect yet because it's too short term. Now, what President Trump is trying to do is he's trying to level set the trade imbalances. He's trying to bring back jobs in manufacturing. He's trying to make the U.S. energy independent, all positive, get foreign investment, get big corporations to bring their factories home. And all these things are necessary for us to see long-term, a real fix in the economy. So he's really being the adult in the room and saying, look, we're going to stop printing, and using the Fed and just really just flooding the economy with printed money. We're actually going to fix the fundamentals. This is what most presidents and politicians haven't wanted to do this. And the reason why they didn't want to do it is because they didn't want to go through what President Trump's having to go through. So he's actually the adult in the room that's trying to fix the real problems with real solutions, but those things aren't done overnight. And so I think, my opinion on this, Mario, is that in the probably next year, we're going to start to see some of these really affecting the economy in a positive way and these, this investment in infrastructure, all these different things, but probably not in the short term. And this is where we have to have the tenacity and the stick-to-itiveness. And unfortunately, there are too many people on our side that are listening to these talking heads, listening to the mainstream corporate media. And that's where they're starting to panic right now.
There is a nostalgia about Kamala Harris. And I find it shocking that she's like in the number one position for running for governor in California. She's the most popular choice for governor in California. And that tells you a lot. There's a kind of a self-loathing kind of thing that I feel about it. So it even happened in the press room at the White House. When they were all gathered in the room, somebody asked the question about, what did you think about Kamala Harris's speech? She just gave a speech a few days ago. And Stephen Miller, this guy, amazing clarity. He's going to remind us of the bullet that we dodged. So let's run that video right now.
Well, I think it was a great reminder to the American people of just how blessed we all are that the leader sitting in the Oval Office today is President Donald Trump and not President Kamala Harris. It was a helpful reminder of just what a travesty and a tragedy that would have been. It would have been the end of America. And it gives me a chance to bring this whole thing home. If we continued on this road of radical regulation, choking off American energy, sending our supply chains to foreign countries, taxing our economy to death, pushing this cancerous woke ideology on our children, ending merit, ending scientific innovation, ending public safety, allowing, everyone goes to the stores these days, everything's locked up, criminals roam free, law-abiding citizens under the previous administration were punished while gangbangers were given red carpet treatment. Democrats, of course, are still giving gangbangers red carpet treatment. And then the border invasion. If those policies had continued, it would have been the end of the American Republic. And the only thing Americans want to hear from Kamala Harris is an apology for joining Joe Biden. And remember, she was the border czar, joining Joe Biden in aiding and abetting the invasion of our country. And we're never going to stop talking about this, because what they did to this country is unforgivable. It is an eternal stain on the Democrat Party. Every day we read another story. Every day we arrest another alien they let into this country who raped a child, who beat a woman within an inch of her life, who murdered a mom, who murdered a dad, who trafficked drugs into this country, who trafficked fentanyl into this country, who are responsible for dead and slaughtered Americans. And I don't know what's broken in the Washington press corps, that none of that moves them emotionally. The only thing that gets them exercised is, do we need to have more trials for terrorist supporters? Do we need to have more trials for gangbangers? Do we need to have more trials for illegal alien invaders? Even though Congress and the Constitution clearly say that you can expel invaders and illegal aliens quickly, efficiently, and properly.
Whew. So Molly Hemingway said this: how can you take anyone seriously on due process that also supported an open border? You see, folks, what we didn't have is due process for the American citizens. We didn't have the rights of the police to protect us. We didn't have the sanity of the constitutional law. And now all of a sudden, it's so amazing, isn't it, how they change, and suddenly they're for the criminal, they're for the individual that they ought to be against, and they totally forget how lawless and open they were for anybody to come in this country. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, they use these. It's like surveys that they do where they can see what would draw the people in. You know, what would be a good topic that we can talk about. You know, to bring in this group of voters or that group. That's what the left does, and so they check. They try these different things, and I mean, having I thought there was a recent interview. I don't know if you saw it, Mario, where they were interviewing somebody. I think they were part of the gangs, like the cartels, and they were saying, "What do you think about Donald Trump?" Are you kidding me? Like, who cares what you think about Donald Trump? You're a criminal. But these are the types of people. And then somehow, because of the spin from the media, they try to paint Trump as the bad guy in that. I mean, I think most thinking people, and I know our audience are thinking people, would say that's insane. But yet there's a segment of society, and I've seen these people, Mario. I hate to say it. We were just in an amusement park because I brought my daughter down here, and a lot of these people are walking around in amusement parks. A lot of these angry people that are low information people that are already upset about something, and all they want to do is be told what they should be, who they should be upset, who they should point their anger towards, and that's what they're doing. You need to be angry at Donald Trump because your 401k is going down. You need to be angry at Donald Trump because of this or that. Meanwhile, they have no idea what's going on, and I love how they love to give advice on the economy. These people can't even have money in their account. They have no understanding of finances at all, but they're the experts, So it's just amazing how far we've come, even in my lifetime, to just how low they can go. I mean, they are literally at rock bottom at this point, and yet they're going lower. It's like it's amazing, but that's what they do, and that's what they're doing in our society, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you look at it, and folks, we have now 3.5 years is what I'm going to say. 3.5 years we've got left to make this thing permanent. And what I'm going to say is the dragon is in the cage, but the dragon has not been slain. There is still a job to do, and it's critical for all of us to know our part in that job. The skyline you see behind me is Tyler, Texas. And our 6 semi-trucks are leaving in 2 days to bring everything we've got down there for a massive crusade. We're using our largest tent, and we are expecting thousands of people from all over that region to come. And that's going to begin on Sunday, May the 18th, 6:30. On Monday and Tuesday morning, we're going to have Todd Coconato speaking in the tent. I'm very excited about the miracles we know are going to happen in the healings. But I've been in prayer obviously getting ready for that crusade, because I believe thousands are going to be born again. I believe it
Yes.
because society is desperate. But in it, you know what, Todd? In my prayer, I've been asking God, what do I say? Because I'm going to tell you my job. The Bible said there was a prayer that Paul asked the Ephesians. He said, pray for me that God would open my mouth that I may bring forth the mysteries of the gospel. Preaching the gospel today is everything to me, folks. It's everything. And for all of you that are watching, I'm going to tell you that I believe that we are at a moment where there is a complacency that's trying to grip the American conservative and the American church that don't understand that we have not yet won. We've tamed the dragon. We haven't defeated the dragon. And I'm not saying that as a fearful statement. I'm saying it to provoke you to good works and to understand the duty that's in front of us. Now, you would think, would you, Todd, that the left would feel stung? The left would say, oh, you know what? Our rhetoric isn't working. Instead, they've dug in, haven't they? They've dug their heels in, and they're getting even more farther left. And I'm shocked by the results of the Australian election and also by the Canadian election. And a lot of people believe those elections were stolen. I'm not going to comment because I don't know enough about it. But I do know that a lot of people are totally in denial about that are on the left. They're in denial. You know, they still think America wants socialism. They think that they need to have rallies and say, you know, we're going to push further to the left. So they really haven't gotten the message at all. And I think it's going to cost them future elections. What do you say?
Well, I think it will. I mean, you look at Ocasio-Cortez and some of these others that are going around doing these rallies right now, and that's scary to think that she could be the head. You know, Bernie Sanders, the head of the party. But really, all it would take for them, Mario, though, is for the Christians, more Christians, because there's already a lot of Christians that already sit out. But for more Christians to sit out, or for more people that, you know, I was reading a blog, and this kind of was interesting, but, you know, different segments of the vote. So we had a real strong support with African American males in the last election, and the Democrat, you know, the far left have been going after that segment and targeting them with specific ads and messaging, and trying to make it look like President Trump is against those, you know, which he's not, of course, but, you know, that segment of our society. And so that's what they do, is they hone in on different groups, and they say, if we could just get this group back, or if we could just get this group to sit out, you know, if they can disenfranchise Christian voters or make us feel unheard, or, you know, focus on the negative things that maybe President Trump, I mean, everything that President Trump does isn't perfect. Once in a while, he'll do something that maybe Christians won't agree with so much, but we know that in the big scheme, it's a million times better than any Kamala Harris administration or any leftist would have been. But so what they do is they'll hone in on those, and we have to be wise to this, Mario, because this is where I even see friends of mine that get tricked by this. This is trickery, okay, where they hone in on, say, well, I don't know if I could vote for Trump now because he did this. Excuse me, are you looking at the big picture? We don't want to go into communism. We don't want to go into, I mean, the plan is so evil, and we could literally be there in the next election cycle if we don't understand this. So that's why we're talking about this tonight, because you have to kind of get out of the momentary news headline and look at the big picture and understand what both sides are trying to do, and where the left is trying to take us is nothing short of tyranny. That's where we would be headed. And it would get so bad. If anybody thinks it's been bad or we've seen bad, to understand what like an AOC administration would be like, my goodness. I mean, we haven't seen the likes of that in this generation. That's how bad it would be. So we have to keep focused and not let the little things, you know, pull us in or make us, you know, not get involved. That's what they want to do.
You know, and here we're going to run a video that you would have thought was more of the summer of BLM. You would have thought it had to do with Portland, Oregon, back when we were under the COVID lockdown and these riots were going on every night. This happened at the University of Seattle. Watch what happens to the police in this video. Let's look at it right now.
So this is University of Seattle.
Right.
And these Antifa people in masks are pushing back the police there.
And they're protesting against Israel.
Yep.
That's what this was.
Yep.
And the police are like rent-a-cops.
That's what I'm saying. Where's the show of force? There's like only a few officers there. I think these types of things are staged. I think they're staged, Mario. I think that this is all a psyop, you know?
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to ask those cops, hey, did we do it right? Did we look right? Did we look sheepish enough? What was the deal there? But
I mean, who are these people? Who are these people in the, it's kind of like when they roll out, they're supposedly these, white supremacists. You ever seen them when they roll them out? They always got the masks on. And honestly, I'm just being truthful. I think a lot of times they're feds. I know that's kind of controversial, but I think there's some type of psychological warfare operation, if anything, where that to me, that's what that looked like, Mario, is that it was something that they wanted to get on film to say, look what's going on here. There's all these protests. Everybody's against Israel. Everybody's against Trump. It doesn't sit right with me.
And we're going to find out as the show goes on what the inversion matrix plot really is. But it begins by understanding what we're talking about. There's a food chain, and the real villains in the earth are not seen. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say is we've never seen them in public. At least we haven't identified them. But they are the ominous force. So in your food chain, you have these little charts where you see the little fish being eaten by the bigger fish all the way up. The first fish that I want to talk about is the idealistic youth, because this is important. One of the great miracles happening in America right now is that Gen Z men are turning to God, and and the numbers are going to keep increasing. But prior to this, and still among a lot of them, is idealism. They love the poor, good thing. They have compassion. Yes, they're sensitive to racial equality. They don't want to hurt anybody. That is not new. Way back in Winston Churchill's time, they were saying that if you're not a socialist when you're young, you don't have a heart. And if you're not a conservative when you're older, you don't have a brain. Well, in between the heart and the brain, what we've got is that low level of young mind. It's idealistic, subject to unfinished sentences and optics and turn of a phrase that will suddenly say, if you love and you have, and nobody does it better than the pop singer. I'm talking about a Taylor Swift IQ, where you simplify everything, simplistic views of everything. And this is where we are. Okay. The next bigger fish to that is the middle management, politician, celebrity for hire. Why does somebody like Elizabeth Warren go into office worth a few $100,000 and now she's worth tens of millions of dollars? How did that happen? Since her salary in the Congress is hardly going to explain it. Well, that individual is now insincerely. See, what you got in the first fish is sincerity. In the bigger fish, you've got money. But way at the top, the ones that are running the dials on this plot that we're uncovering tonight are not seen. And they can literally finance a war. They can fund forever their plots and their plans. And I'm not even talking about George Soros. I'm talking about something else. And I think we see it, that there is this global strategy. I mean, I want you to comment on this, Todd. Just when we thought the problem was the politicians, all of a sudden, lawfare. Remember all the lawsuits against Donald Trump? And That's when right. That didn't work, all of a sudden he's in office. It's the judges. They came out of the woods. So the tentacles of this global force that is trying to subdue identity, individuality, and freedom and everything else, it is incredible where it all is. And that's why I'm trying to tell people, don't panic. I'm not trying to do that. But you got to realize how many tentacles this monster actually has is incredible. Go ahead.
That's right. The strategy is to wear down the believer. And to wear down the believer means to overwhelm the believer. That's what the enemy is trying to do. And I'm telling you, everywhere we go, people tell me, I feel overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. I know a lot of you are feeling like that are watching this broadcast. And what the Lord is speaking to us right now is don't feel overwhelmed. Understand this is a spiritual battle. And we have to know what tools we can use according to the Word of God. And that's what we talk about on this show, is not just to report this stuff, but we want to tell you how you can fight back, how you can win. And this whole thing, I mean, Mario, you just nailed it. I'm so thankful for the way that you just articulated, because there's so many different tentacles. That's what Donald Trump dealt with in his first term as president. He didn't realize how deep the deep state went. And in his second term, he's really trying to bulldoze as fast as he can through that. That's why he's issuing so many executive orders. He's putting really strong people in these positions like Kash Patel and others, is to try to, get rid of some of this deep state. I mean, there's so much. But, think about it. For years, George Soros, a friend of mine that's very active, says all politics are local. And what he means by that is that Soros understands that if you can infiltrate local politics in states like Tennessee, I mean, we look at it right in our community, it's about as red as it can be as far as the voters, the people, the folks. But meanwhile, there's corruption happening in our city. There's corruption happening at the local level. There's Soros plants all throughout our city. And so this is why we have to be active and not just sit back. I know a lot of people say, don't get involved in politics. Don't get involved. Are you kidding me? It came to us. Like you say, Mario, it's come to us in our schools. It's come to us in our kids' curriculums. It's come to us at our churches. And so, we can't be overwhelmed, and we've got to get a strategy from heaven and understand this is where discernment comes in. This is where knowing the scripture comes in, and knowing we're not crazy. By the way, Firepower audience, you're not crazy for thinking some of these things that you're saying. Thank you for talking about this, child sex trafficking, all these things that are going on. We don't even have the time on a 1-hour show each week to go through the litany of things that they're trying to do. I mean, just look what happened with the border and all those kids that were probably trafficked as a result of that. We can't even cover half this stuff, but we know it's happening, and we've got to push back. And so I think this is really to get us encouraged as a body and say, you know what, you're not crazy. Don't be overwhelmed. Get in the presence of God, get a strategy from heaven, and then do what the Lord's telling you to do. And if we all do that, we're going to make a difference, and we're going to be able to hold the line. But right now, there's a lot on the line right now, Mario.
There was a moment in the Thessalonian church where they were asking the questions we're asking. And Paul addressed the feeling that conspiracies were everywhere and that the world was chaotic and the church needed to understand what was going on. So I want to read 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, starting at verse 5. Do you not remember when I was still with you, I told you these things? And now you know what is restraining, that he may be revealed in his own time. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work, and only he who now restrains will do so until he is taken out of the way. Then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteousness, deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. For this reason, God will send them strong delusion, that they may be deceived. Now, I should believe the lie, Verse 12, that they may all be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. The mechanism of deception is at work. It's widespread. I'll tell you the most breathtaking display of hypocrisy I ever saw in my lifetime. I was attacked by a leader of a denomination for being political. Then it came to light that this individual who told me to stay out of politics was receiving money from the Democratic Party. Not thousands, but millions of dollars. They were being funded to tell me not to get involved in politics by politicians. This is what we're talking about. Now, is it right to uncover all this? Is it right to hit the rock over, watch all the insects squirrel, or shine a flashlight into a dingy basement to see what all is going on? Absolutely. Because the only way that you and I can have triumph in Christ is to understand what we're up against. Otherwise, Todd, why would Paul say all these things about the Antichrist and about the restraint? I believe that we can extend the opportunity to witness to the world and get all our loved ones in before Christ comes. But I think what it's going to take is a vibrant church, an on-fire church, and it's also important to understand not everybody's going to jump in, are they? But you can, and you can't allow the enormity of the enemy. We can't allow the size of the enemy to influence our faith or our decision to stand and fight. Go ahead, Todd.
That's right. I mean, history tends to repeat itself, and we've looked at the past. And we've said, how did that happen? How did that happen in that country? How did that happen in that time? And here we are. We've been seeing it. And to your point, Mario, I mean, I've got a lot of people that have pushed back over the years and said, you're too political, you're too this. And I just think, what is political about defending the life of an innocent baby? You know, what is political about marriage between a man and a woman, or you know, defending core principles of biblical theology? I mean, there's nothing about that that's political. They made it political, but it's not political. And right now, I mean, we've fought for religious liberty in our country. President Trump just actually put a task force together to stand for religious liberty against Christian persecution, against, you know, any type of persecution. And if we think even in the short period of time that he's been president, the first 100 days, how much has been accomplished through the executive action. But I have something that I want to talk about that. I have a bone to pick. You know, our Congress right now in the House and the Senate is Republican. And there's very, I don't think any, unless you know something I don't, Mario, of the things that President Trump has put into action with his executive orders, I don't think any of it's been codified yet. So even with the Republican Congress, they're not making these things permanent. And the problem with that is if you get another president in, they can undo everything that President Trump's just done. So it's a false sense of security. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, there's nothing wrong with getting mad, folks. Nothing wrong, as long as it ends up being righteous indignation. But if you want righteous indignation, you would have thought, now that the deportation order is in, now that ICE is doing its job, you would think that the gangsters would be afraid and maybe have a low profile. Instead, they were part of a demonstration, illegals, including gangsters, in Times Square. They were rioting in Times Square. Let's watch this right now.
The two officers jump in to try to stop a couple of teen suspects from carrying out an apparent assault. But soon a gang jumps in to try to stop the officers from making the arrests. Video shows the officers being shoved, objects being thrown at them, and then the group flees. Several of the teen suspects in custody, one as young as 12, one flashing gang symbols. The suspects believed to be associated with the notorious TDA gang.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the TDA, I think that's the Tren de Agua, as far as I know. But you know, what's so crazy about this, I have friends, I know you do too, Mario, that are in law enforcement. I have friends that have been NYPD. They tell me what's going on the ground there. And they say that these officers, if they can retire, they want to retire. They said, forget it, I'm not getting paid enough. And that's because they haven't had the support of elected officials in the city of New York and the state of New York. And this is what happens. And you mentioned earlier in the broadcast about lawlessness. The devil is the lawless one. I mean, these are the folks that wanted to defund the police. These are the folks that said, hey, you got to defund the police. And, you know, they stopped key policies that, if you recall, during the time that Giuliani was the mayor in New York, this stuff wasn't happening because he really did clean up that city. I remember I used to visit New York all the time before and during when he was the mayor of New York City, and it was cleaned up quite extensively compared to it is now. Now it's regressed. It's gone back to having a lot of the issues and even worse. And part of that is because they flooded. If any of you are watching from Manhattan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They flooded this city with illegal people, with people from other countries. And they're not, a lot of them aren't the good folks from other countries. They're people that were, like President Trump says, they kind of emptied out their jails, so this is insane. And, anybody that's watching this broadcast, I think we have a pretty informed audience. But if you might want to familiar yourself with the Rules for Radicals, which was a book that was Saul Alinsky, and then also Cloward and Piven's strategy, because what we're seeing, what we're talking about tonight, Mario, is exactly that. And I'll just say this real quick. They use our own beliefs and our own ideologies against us. So what they'll do is, for instance, if you think about Christians, we're known by our fruit, we're known by our love. So think about what they do with the LGBTQ and the alphabet mafia, right? What do? They say, well, love is love, right? Love is love. They use Christian terms and terminology, and then that way they think that it's going to subdue. And unfortunately, a lot of believers fall into that trap. And that's that. You mentioned a little righteous anger. I have a little righteous anger because I can see what's going on here, and I think many of you can, and what their plans are. And that's why we need to get ready right now to make sure that we can fight in the spirit, get in our prayer closets, and continue to pray for our nation and our cities. Because these officers, it bothers me when I see young people think, in my day, young people would not have done that with the police department. I'm sorry. Maybe at a smaller scale, maybe some very fringe situations, but not to the level of what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and it's brazen now. We have come to that moment, Todd, where we're going to divulge the inversion matrix plot. What is it? Well, watch this video because it's going to explain to you what we're getting at. We're getting deep into it right now. Here it is.
Come closer. I've got something to tell you. Something is happening across the Western world. You can feel it on the streets, in the courts, at work, and online. It's not just political. It's not just cultural. It's psychological. A silent shift is underway, and it has a name. The inversion matrix. 5 sections. Section 1. The reversal begins. In this new system, the native becomes the intruder, the majority becomes the villain, and the truth becomes hate speech. The very people whose ancestors built these nations, who raised the families, tilled the land, and paid taxes, now find themselves apologizing for simply existing. How did this happen? Section 2. Psychological engineering and guilt programming. It began with psychological engineering. First, inject guilt programming, a constant stream of reminders about colonialism, slavery, privilege, and oppression. Then, flood the language with weaponized labels. Racist, transphobe, Islamophobe, far-right, each designed to shut down conversation, to train you, to self-censor, and to submit. This isn't about justice, it's about control through confusion. Section 3. The 2-tier system of compassion. Look around and you'll see it. As a matter of fact, I think that you know it already. Certain groups can gather publicly in the name of religion or pride. Others are fined, silenced, or arrested for praying silently. Crimes by one group are explained away as trauma, misunderstanding, or cultural norms. Same crime committed by someone else, instant outrage, national headlines, and cancellation.
Ooh.
Isaiah said they would call good evil and evil good. The manipulation that we are watching, everything that gentleman said. Now, here is where Americans don't understand. Think of the United States as an island and the water is rising, not because of global warming. I'm not buying that part. The waters of hostility are rising. We look at China. We say China is a threat, right? We say North Korea is a threat. We say Russia is a threat. But we forget that basically we've lost England. We've lost France. These are nations that now are so woke that there's 5 sections to the inversion matrix. And in England, they're in all 5. All 5 of them. They're living it out. You can't have free speech in England if you criticize the wrong religion. So we're watching that our allies are going in a certain direction. And then we look at Canada. Jordan Peterson, who came out of Canada because as a professor, he rose to fame because he refused to use the pronouns that the academic community said he needed to use for the trans people. Well, he knew intellectually how false and bogus that was. All right. Canada is almost gone. Australia is heading left. Mexico is largely being controlled by drug cartels. So you see, the idea that Donald Trump can do all this by himself is the fallacy of the century. Every believer has got to wake up and realize, yeah, we've had victory. Yeah, we're watching Pam Bondi. We're watching all of the staff, what I call the Avengers, because that's the quality that I see in the cabinet that Trump has put together. All of that is going to be meaningless in 3.5 years. And the other threat is going on ignored. What do we do about it? Well, what we do about it is first you realize what's going on. Next, you realize God put you on this planet at this time, in this moment, like Esther, for a purpose. Mordecai said, for such a time as this, you've come into this situation. For our part, I met with our staff. I told our people, and I've told all the pastors that are working with us, we have got to double the impact of our tent crusades. We have got to pull out all the stops. I just recently had a personal miracle in the city of Santa Barbara, California. I can't talk about it yet. But in that city, when I was in that city in a living room, God transformed my perspective on our crusades. They have got to now go into the major cities. We have to invade Chicago, Seattle, New York City, St. Louis, Miami, San Francisco. We have to believe that greater is he who is in us than he that is in the world. Instead of us fearing and going backwards, we've got to be strong and believe in the name of Jesus. Go ahead, Todd.
That's right. And when one of your tent crusades comes into a city, what happens is it empowers folks. So everybody that comes there gets encouraged, catches the fire of God, and they gets empowered to go out. We've heard testimony after testimony of folks that say, after what happened in North Carolina, I felt the Lord led me to do this or do that. And then all of a sudden it was like some major strategy from the Lord. So this is a game plan. This is a strategy. Similar, Mario, at our church, we feel like, in Nashville, there's a church on almost every corner. There's about as many churches as there are coffee shops. If we're not impacting our local community, if we're not impacting local governments, if we're not impacting local school board, what are we doing? So we actually have a government liaison team that's amazing and led by a very articulate, very smart woman. And her team is very smart. And they're now meeting with the mayors. They're meeting with the police. They're meeting with all the different folks, and they're making a difference. And, I talked to President Trump's faith team about this, and they said, why can't we do this in every city? I said, I don't know. Why can't we? We can. And listen, none of this is to brag, but what Mario and I are trying to say is we have sought the Lord because we have a heart for you. We have a heart for this country. We have a heart for the children. We have a heart for the next generation, and we just can't sit idle. And I just, I put something up on social media today, Mario, and, it's just simple, but, we talk about the devil owns the fence. You can't be on the fence at this point. You have to choose a side, and when you choose righteousness, then you're going to get flack. You're going to get warfare. But you know what? What's the cost of not? What's the cost of not? Not only is it our eternity, but it's losing what we have. And to your point earlier, I think God has given us this. It's an extension of time. I mean, we were in the 2-minute warning before. Now we're in overtime. We're in overtime right now. I mean, look at everything prophetically that's happening. But there is a remnant that's rising. There is folks that are rising up under the anointing of God in this hour to impact. Look at these young people that are catching the fire. I mean, our show a few weeks ago, kind of showing some of the things that were happening on the campuses. And, people keep talking to me about it. They were encouraged about that. That is happening. And so we're going to be a part of that. And your tent crusade going to Tyler, I want to encourage anybody that's anywhere near Texas. I know Texas is a big state, but even, come in for it. It's a big tent. Mario's bringing the big guns out. Come out, be a part of it. It's going to be game changing.
Amen. The second part of this, this inversion matrix plot, let's watch this right now.
Section 4. Institutional capture. Every major institution in the Western world has been taken over by the same ideological virus. Schools no longer teach pride in culture, but shame in history. Police now investigate felonies, feelings, not felonies. Media filters truth through an ideological lens, where facts are problematic and narratives are sacred. Even churches and temples now bow down to slogans instead of scripture. This is called institutional capture, and it's not accidental. Section 5 is the long game. Divide, demoralize, and replace. But why? Because a divided, guilt-ridden, and morally paralyzed society is easier to govern. Shatter its tradition. Drown it in imported ideologies, redefine its language, and turn its people against themselves. This is what I'm keep trying to say. These are the true cracks through the matrix. The end goal? Not justice, not harmony, but the population too confused to resist and too fragmented to unite. But let's be clear. This isn't a war between races, or religions, or genders. It's a war between truth and programming. Between those who remember who they are and those who've been rethought to forget. You don't need to hate anyone, but you do need to see. Because the longer we stay silent, the more the inversion matrix tightens.
I really feel that I need to read this verse, Daniel 11:32. Those who do wickedly against the covenant, he shall corrupt with flattery. You know what another name for that is? That's the blue pill. That's what that is. Corrupted with flattery. Oh, we'll pay your bills. Oh, we'll take care of your kids. Oh, we'll do this for you all. But the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. I think that sometimes we don't realize that it is good to understand that the moment is urgent because it brings out excellence in us. Sometimes we need to feel not threatened ourselves. I don't want you to feel threatened. I want you to rather see your loved one, your children. They're threatened. And when you feel threatened, you're going to have a certain reaction. But when someone you love is threatened, you have a totally different reaction. That's the one we're after on this show. Not to alarm you, but to arm you and maybe to absolutely spark in you the courage and the greatness to do exploits for God you never thought imaginable. One thing that I think is very important to come out with and to state without fear is this: whatever great thing you're going to do for God, you better get started now. It's day one. Quit talking about vision. Quit talking about the day when, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. No more of that. Now is the time. And I'm going to tell you the two things. Did you notice this, Todd? He said that the way that they'll get control over us is people will be too tired to resist and too fragmented to unify. I really have to preach against right now these overnight heresy hunters that are everywhere. I've been watching these. There's these people online right now. Perry Stone calls them cannibals. That's what he calls them. And he said, they go online and they nitpick. Here's the latest scandal. Here's the latest nuance. Let me play you a clip of this preacher and I'll show you the heresy they've done. And you know what? You're a heretic when you do that. Because the fact of the matter is, you have found a way to get promoted not by God, but by controversy. And the power of that is going to divide us. The others that are fatigued and tired are because they're not being fed enough strong word in their churches. They're not getting a diet that is nutritious. Here's what it should be. We're in an hour where you need to be on fire for God. You need to get in the Word of God. You need to understand that those that are out there can be seduced, but you're different. You're the one that's going to know God and do great exploits. That's the important thing. Go ahead, Todd.
That's right. Don't be seduced. That's, I came from Hollywood. I saw a lot of seduction out there. Don't be seduced. Don't be seduced by the things of this world, the accolades of man being, proved by everybody. Don't take a public opinion poll about what you're going to say. Speak truth. Do it boldly. Do it unapologetically. I mean, obviously not in a way where we're attacking people, but in a way that we speak it so that they're set free. That's what the Bible says. The truth sets the captive free. And we can't apologize for truth. There's so many folks that I know that are preachers that are afraid to speak the full Bible. Don't be afraid to speak the Bible. Speak the Bible. Speak it unapologetically. I mean, this is what's going to set our nation free. And you know what? People know. They know inherently anyways. When I was in the world and I bought the lie of the enemy, and my mom would write a prophetic word, something slid it under my door, or put it, when I moved out somewhere, she got it to me and I would read it and I didn't want to read it. But you know what? I read it and I knew that she was speaking truth and I knew that she cared about me. And that's what we have to understand is even somebody that's deeply entrenched in a lifestyle of sin, when you speak truth to them, right, they know inside there is a conviction on them. And that's why a lot of times people try to shut us down and silence us is because they're convicted. And a lot of times people try to argue with the demon. Don't argue with the demon. Just speak the truth and then go into war in the spirit. And we got to get in our prayer closets again. It's so important. Preachers, you got to be praying. We all got to be praying. We got to be praying for one another. You mentioned a good point a few moments ago, Mario. I mean, what war are we engaging in right now? Are we filling the church up or are we emptying the church? We got to think about that, right? And what is the actual battle at hand right now? We've got plenty of things to deal with, and friendly fire ain't going to be good. It's not really friendly. So, just be wise. Be wise about how you act and what you do, and be spirit-led. And that comes from our prayer life. And we need to be better at it. So we need to be better at being in the Word. We need to be better at our prayer life, and we need to be better at combating this evil. And I think God has given us this extra time for this season. Like you said, Mario, for such a time as this. This is it. This is your day one. I think that's a quotable. This is your day one. This is the first day of the rest of your life. What are you going to do now?
Yep. And, we got 2 minutes left. Well, a little under 3 minutes. And we want to invite you all to the tent. We want to make sure that you come to the tent. And what I'd like to do now is use this moment. If you are on fire, you need to pray about being a volunteer, coming to the tent as a volunteer. This is the last call, really. After tonight, we'll not be able to ask for volunteers. But if you will, I'd like to put up a QR code that you can use to use that right now to scan it. I want to remind you of what's going to happen. We will have medically verified miracles. You've seen the movie, a lot of you, I Am Living Proof. You know that God heals the sick under our tent. Those of you that live in the Tyler area, immediately you need to bring people who need healing and need Christ. But if you want to volunteer, scan this code right now. It'll be a life-changing experience for you. Okay, thank you, Matt. Now, Todd, I really believe that we're setting an example, not only by doing this show, but by putting up that tent. That tent is going to be 40 100,000 square feet. You realize how big that is? That's an acre of ground under canvas. And you can see it from space, by the way. But I am convinced that this is going to be a breakthrough. Where sin does abound, grace does much more abound. We're living in a dark time